Seth, what's up, brother? Welcome to the Tasty Brains podcast.
Look at that. That's a name for a podcast. Thank you so much for having
right.
me, man.
Everyone out there, welcome back to the Tasty Brains podcast. Obviously, you know what to do on the YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll probably say that again at the end, but whatever.
Whatever.
Seth,
Don't bother.
Thank you very much for taking some time out of your probably busy schedule and joining me on the show. A thing I always mess up and don't do is give people a chance to let all these other people that are listening know who the person is I'm talking to if they don't know who you are. So if you got a second, which I'm sure you do, give a little quick intro, background/bio.
Oh, so that's how you do it. Wow, I need to make my guests intro themselves. Wow, that's a good. You have a good thing going.
Well, I always think the person can tell their story better than I can,
Okay.
and usually that always leads into I'm not a great podcaster or a good one at that, but I'm rather stupid, so I'd rather have the smarter people talk, and then I can build on conversation from there.
Right on. My story, I'll give the quick version. I've been in sports broadcasting for close to 28 years now, getting older.
Wow.
So, outside of being old, I've been in sports broadcasting. I've lived all over the country. Went to Syracuse University, worked there after school.
Wow.
So, covered a bunch of games there, covered the Final Four and things like that. Moved to Denver, Colorado, covered Super Bowl 32. That was a big claim to fame. I was 23 years old, but I had already covered a Super Bowl.
Right.
In Denver, it was amazing. I worked for the Avalanche. I covered the Colorado Rockies. I wound up moving to Seattle. Lived in Seattle for 4 years, primarily covering the Mariners. Did a lot with the Mariners.
Okay.
Mariners made the playoffs in 2000. And they wound up playing the Yankees in the American League Championship Series. And I wound up meeting the people at Major League Baseball.
Okay.
I had met them, over the phone, but this was a chance to have lunch with them and hang out. I went up sitting next to them in the press box, and I wound up getting hired to go join the league. So I moved back to New York to work for Major League Baseball. Worked there for 8 years. Worked for ESPN. Worked for the Philadelphia Phillies, Fox Sports Radio. Worked for the New York Mets. Now I work for iHeartMedia. And I also have been involved in the podcast space for a long time. When I was at MLB, they created podcasts before it was even a word.
Right.
I remember being in a meeting where somebody said, we could take a portion of your radio show and make it an MP3 with instructions on how people can put this on their hot new device, the iPod.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's so cool. And I, at the time I didn't think like, oh, what a revolutionary thing. I was like, oh, my grandmother could hear it. That's so cool.
Right.
And, we were doing it for about 10 months before we heard the word podcast. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan.
Oh yeah.
But do you remember the episode where Elaine took all the sponges, all the birth control sponges, and she would have to decide if the guy she was with was sponge worthy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So my partner, Daryl, Daryl Hamilton played 13 years in the majors. He was my partner on the radio show. And what we realized with technology was that you could only take a certain amount of the radio show for the MP3, or else it would get too big for these iPod devices. And so when we heard the word podcast, we try to make a joke out of it. And if a guy would call up with like a dumb trade, we'd go, dude, you're not going to get on the podcast. Like you're not, that's not podcast worthy.
Right.
You're not podcast worthy. So like we mocked the word. We thought the word was a joke. And then all of a sudden now Ricky Gervais had a podcast and Kevin Smith had a podcast, and all these podcasts were bouncing all over the place. And then when I got to ESPN in 2009, they were like, hey, can you be a part of our Baseball Today podcast? And I was like, yeah, we'd been doing them for 6 years. Like, sure.
Wow.
And we did it for a while. And then in 2015, I created my own. I created Sports with Friends. The backstory for Sports with Friends, real simple, is Daryl and I were going to do a show together. You know, we had split up professionally, but we were the best of friends. We were going to, in 2014, I worked for the Mets and he worked for the Milwaukee Brewers, and we were crisscrossing America, never in the same city unless the Mets played the Brewers.
Right.
And we thought it was so cool that we thought it would be fun to do a podcast together. He had just done a freelance deal with MLB Network, so he wanted to talk to them and make sure it was okay, like it was kosher with them that he come on this podcast. And tragically, in June of 2015, he was killed. And I kind of threw the whole project away. You know, he was my best friend, and we kind of screwed the whole thing. And then what I learned was I fell in love with social media. You know, what I found was social media was just the best therapy you could ask for when you're mourning. And so what I took from that was if I was going to do a podcast, I wanted to talk to my friends because that was the only way I was getting through this. And my mother was playing the game Words with Friends. And so I created Sports with Friends. That was the idea. And we just published our 407th episode today, this morning.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. And then I did this other podcast called The Hall of Justice, simpler story. I felt like the superhero space was very underutilized.
I agree.
And at the time, there were superhero podcasts, but they were either super nerdy or they were for kids. And could you do something for adults that was about the genre?
Right.
And so we named it the Hall of Justice. And the slogan is, if you're old enough to know what the Hall of Justice is, you're our demographic. That was the idea.
That's fantastic.
And so it's not like a way back. It's not a nostalgia podcast, but we reference nostalgia in the sense that, like, this week we're reviewing the Transformers movie.
Can't wait. I'm going tomorrow.
And so, well, it's a spoiler podcast, so like watch the movie first. But in it, we'll say, like,
not to interrupt you, I saw you posted Into the Spider-Verse, and I haven't seen that, and I appreciate you writing spoiler on the side there, because I'm like, I won't watch that.
Well, because you're a dick if you spoil movies on social media, but if 100%. You say in a podcast, hey, don't press play unless you've seen this or you don't care, then at least, hey, I've been warned. You know, and what we found is people like those podcasts more than they like the guests. Like, we've had some great guests, don't get me wrong.
No, for sure. We'll get into that.
But we can talk about that. But the as a general rule, the listenership likes the reviews more than the guests. It's just the word spoiler, I think, makes a big difference.
Oh, 100%.
When you in the show notes say don't press play on something, I think people press play.
Have you? So, you know, I don't want to glaze over sports, but I want to stay on the comic topic, because I'm.
That's fine.
I'm a major. I think I was listening to you the other day, and it's not a word that always gets good connotation as the nerd word, you know. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big fucking nerd. So I love comic books. My show that I do with my other buddy pretty much twice a month. It always ends in some sort of movie review / comic book deep dive that we just went off a rant on. Have you always been collecting comics and been into comics since you were a kid?
It's funny that you asked that. No.
Okay.
That's a hard no. I got involved in comics. I was always into cartoons. So I'm a little older than you. I was always into cartoons. When I was real little, I was into the Super Friends. So I knew who Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman were. I was very into He-Man and the Transformers. Nice. Those were my guys.
Same, but different.
But the difference was in 1992, I was a freshman at Syracuse, and I was working for the campus TV station.
Okay.
And I got assigned to cover the death of Superman.
Oh, my goodness.
And I went to this comic book store, and there was like a line out the door. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe there was a comic book store, because we didn't have one where I grew up. And I didn't grow up in like a slum. We didn't have a comic book store, or I didn't know of one, you know.
They're pretty few and far between. I mean, even to this day.
Right. So I didn't know. And then the next semester, I could take my car up to campus. So I did. And once I got my car, I wanted to go back to that comic book store. I just wanted to see what it was like when it wasn't the crowd.
Mobbed. Yeah.
And at that point, Hal Jordan went bananas.
Oh, okay.
It was the Parallax storyline where Hal Jordan, Coast City is destroyed, and Hal Jordan goes, you can curse on this podcast, right?
Oh yeah, all you want.
Batshit crazy. And I just was like, this stuff's written for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was 19 at the time, and I was like, these books are written not for kids. Like this is for me.
Right.
I had never seen something that wasn't Super Friends or Superman the movie. You know, I had never seen that. So then, you know, and if you look behind me, like this is all comics. Like,
yeah. For sure.
This is 30 years of collecting comics, because then what I was doing was then I was researching, and then I was learning and reading and catching up on stuff from the 80s.
Right.
And just understanding more about what it is. And now the genre has exploded. But yeah, I was a comics fan from college on.
How do you feel about that explosion? You like it? Do you love it?
Well, you know, I jokingly say, in 1998, I was hosting a show in Denver, Colorado, and I remember referencing, it was a football-centric show, but I remember referencing Batman.
Okay.
This was the time when George Clooney had been Batman.
Nipple Batman.
And I referenced Batman. Somebody had brought it up, or a caller or a producer or somebody referenced Batman. And I talked about it for a couple minutes, and I got called into the office, and I was told men don't talk about superheroes.
What?
And I was told that, and I just remember being like so annoyed, so angry.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this sucks. And so when later on in my life, I got hired in 2015, the same year that Daryl died. I got hired by this thing. Wizard World had this thing. They had this production company called Cinedigm, and they had this concept of a show. It's actually on Tubi right now. If you have the streaming service Tubi.
What a revolutionary little app for your television.
Yeah, if you get Tubi, you can type in my name. You'll see this show.
Okay.
It's called Con TV, CON-TV. And what the idea was, it was supposed to be like ESPN College Game Day for Comic-Cons. So like instead of being like an anchor desk in the middle of the University of Alabama, it would be in the middle of Philadelphia.
San Diego.
It would be in the middle of a Comic-Con. And what I learned was there were so many people that had so many cool stories to tell. Writers, artists, actors, directors, like there's so much.
Right.
And I was like, there's no place in the media that this exists. And so I was like, I was determined. And the guy who was pushing me to do Sports with Friends, I just was like, can I try this other thing? Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was just going to be a hobby. I remember that. And then we got really lucky. In January 2016, sorry if this is a long-winded answer, but
no, I don't care.
In 2016, January 2016, it was a sports connection. The Super Bowl was in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I was working for NBC Sports Radio at the time, and Zack Snyder was doing a promotion for Doritos.
You got to be kidding me.
It was a promotion for the Super Bowl for Doritos. And he was doing a bunch of media to promote the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And he was supposed to be on NBC Sports Radio in the morning show. And the morning show host didn't know anything about superheroes. So he calls me up and he says, what do I ask Zack Snyder? And I just thought quick on my feet. And I said, I'll make you a deal. I will type out questions for you. I said, but ask the PR person if I could talk to Zach for 10 minutes for this podcast that at the time was like 5 months old.
Boom.
And it's episode 28. And Zach came on, but unbeknownst to me at the time, Zach ripped Superman fans.
And
it went viral. Someone from Variety heard it
Wow.
I think because of the PR person, like, was trying to just spread the word,
Sure.
and the link was in the Variety article and the Hollywood Reporter and like all these superhero blogs, and it went
Wow.
nuts. And we get over 450,000 listens.
That's insane.
It was crazy. But the coolest part was the previous episodes, which were, I mean, I kid you not, like we were averaging maybe 100 listens.
Sure.
Like now suddenly had 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it was telling me was there is a market for this.
Yeah, for sure.
That if Zack Snyder does one thing, it'll just expose the podcast, and that just keep doing it because there is an audience for this.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not, it gets, now it averages about 35,000 listeners a week. And
wow,
like just the idea that we have a goddamn commercial in this show. Like, it's about superheroes.
Yeah.
We're doing a show. I have to, after I get done with you, I have to edit a show about Transformers.
Like, can't beat it.
That's crazy to me. And yeah, it's a labor of love. I always say, if there's a law, there isn't going to be. But if there ever is a podcast law that says you can only have one, as much as I love Sports with Friends, the Hall of Justice is it. Because no offense to, I don't have the ego to say, I think Sports with Friends is good. Don't get me wrong, but the Hall of Justice is unique.
Right.
Sports with Friends, there's a billion of sports podcasts.
There is. That's kind of why I have Tasty Brains podcast, because I like to talk about too much.
You're trying to do something unique. Exactly.
Yeah. I like too many things. And I think it's funny because there's a few people I listen to as far as for my nerderyisms. Emergency Awesome. He does a really good job on his reviews. I don't know if you've ever watched his stuff. He used to show his face. It's not a podcast by any means. It's like he'll pick a show sometimes, and it'll go by after the episode. It'll be like, hey, this is what happened. And then other stuff, it'll be, oh, movies coming out. Oh, the new trailer dropped for Blue Beetle yesterday. Here's the Superman, Batman references, blah, blah, blah. He does a good job. I think I don't want to, speak for him, but it seems like he gets a little under the table love from Disney or somebody, because he gets some really in there info, or his connections are really tight, because he gets some good stuff out to you before most of the other peeps do.
Good.
I asked you about how you feel about it blowing up, and it's great to hear that you've like read a good amount of comic books and are kind of honed into what's happened in the past and what's coming. And I find it so, I get into this with my buddy all the time. Why can't they just write the movies sometimes the way they're in the books? The stories are written so well. Most of these big overarching, crazy things, these stories, everyone's already overpowered, right? Yeah, there's the levels, there's the super, there's this, you have like a Sentry or, someone like that's, just crazy, or the one, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, you have all those, but for the most part, they all kind of balance themselves out. There's things that happen where it un-OPs somebody. And in the movies, I feel like they're just trying to make it so Jeff, who's never read a comic book before, he's going to go to the movies and watch it. I think if you just give the story of what we've already had, even though Infinity Gauntlet, that whole storyline was quite different than what the comic book was, they did an amazing job kind of going through that, 10 years of Marvel for us. And I feel like now they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle again. And I haven't seen a Marvel movie that, other than Spider-Man, the most recent, Far From Home or Homecoming, whatever the last one was.
You like that movie?
Yeah, I loved the last Spider-Man.
Did you like it, or did you love the fan service?
Fan service. I definitely liked that.
You can still can curse in this podcast, right?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Because the Tom Holland character Tom Holland's a great actor. Don't get me wrong.
For sure.
I have a rule the way I review these movies. Number one, it's never the actor. It's the standard is Ryan Reynolds was great as Green Lantern. It's not his fault he fought a cloud.
Right.
Okay. So as long as you establish that, the Tom Holland character is the dumbest shit I've seen in the world. And everything that happens to him in all of his movies and his appearances is his fault.
100%.
That's
I don't know
not
why they're
heroic,
going that. Why
but
they're
there's nothing
pitching that
heroic about
storyline.
him. There's nothing heroic about him.
Right.
And that movie, yes, the fan service was great. It was great to see Tobey Maguire. It was great to see Andrew Garfield. The concept that he has spoilers, he wants to fix the bad guys.
Yeah, right.
He wants to fix bad guys.
That's Disney. That to me
stupid.
is Disney and Marvel trying to.
But that was stupid. So that movie to me was dumb. Like that movie was really dumb.
I can appreciate that point of view for 100%.
And the problem with all the Spider-Man movies since Tom Holland's character was created,
right,
is he's stupid. Like he's dumb and his judgment is off.
Right. It's funny. I was in here working the other day and I'm like, I haven't seen that in a while. I'll watch it again. And I found it's funny. It's so funny you're saying that because I until the other characters come, until Doc Ock, shows up on the bridge and Green Goblin shows up, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this Doctor Strange scene? And Doctor Strange is getting annoyed and he's like, basically, shut the fuck up and everything will be fine, you stupid kid. And in my head, I'm going, wait a second, like Spider-Man's not a dummy. Like he ends up being one of the strongest, smartest people in comic books. It's fucking Spider-Man, I mean, and I loved his in Civil War when he shows up. It's amazing. It's like, holy shit, fucking Spider-Man's back, for real. And I feel like they had a moment there. They could have said, okay, he's like the kid and doesn't know about all this shit that's going on. And then they could have grown that story into more of like, well, he's a kid, but he's like super smart and he gets now that he's a superhero. And they're really trying to drag on the whole, I'm a school idiot and I have superpowers. And It looks like they're trying to do the same thing with Blue Beetle. It's like, oh, I got this suit. It's crazy. I don't know how it works. Whoa. And then I'm sure that movie's going to be like, okay, yeah, I watched it.
Right.
It has no consequence for the future of your DC universe, James Gunn. So cool.
Well, the biggest thing with Marvel, that at least from my perspective, I think that Marvel, Civil War was the closest thing to a perfect movie.
Yeah. Are you a Winter Soldier fan?
Yeah, I'm a huge Winter Soldier fan.
Fantastic.
I thought Winter Soldier was great. I like the first Iron Man. I can tell you a funny story about the first Iron Man.
That's in my top 5.
The first Iron Man
for Marvel.
This is dumb, but my wife worked for Marvel. She worked for Marvel. We were married before she worked for Marvel, so it's not like I married a girl who worked for Marvel. But when she interviewed for Marvel, I was like, please get the job. Please get the job.
Right.
But no, she worked for Marvel, and I remember coming home one day and said, she got the job when Spider-Man 3 came out. Just to put context.
Gotcha.
This is the Topher Grace Venom, and
we won't talk about it.
She said to me, she said, Marvel wants to finance their own movie. I said, wow, that's pretty bold. That's a pretty bold move.
Hell yeah.
And her response was, yeah. And then weeks later, she's like, I found out what character they're going to do their movie. And she says, Iron Man. And I said, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Because have you ever read a good Iron Man comic?
I was never a big fan. I was like, oh, cool.
The only time you've ever seen Iron Man remotely interesting, he's been drunk.
That's right.
So this idea that Iron Man was going to be their tentpole of this movie, and it wasn't a universe. It was one movie. They were just going to get one movie.
Yeah.
And this is pre-Disney. And I was just like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then they cast Robert Downey Jr. Then they hired Jon Favreau. Well, they had hired Jon Favreau. Then they cast Robert Downey Jr. And I kind of was like, all right. But I remember going to the company screening.
Oh wow,
I was the plus one. Like we
that's
went to the
badass.
company screening, and this was months before it was released, and I was like, this movie rocks. Like this movie, because they changed it just enough. Like they said the comic book is not relevant, but the story, the integrity of the story is intact.
Yep.
Can you do that? And they did it in spades. Like
I
think they did it in home run. And I thought, wow, what a neat thing for Marvel to have. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I just thought it was very, and I ate a lot of crow on that. Like it was very funny. Through the years, she doesn't work for Marvel anymore. She left a long time ago, but through the years, they know the folks at Marvel know about my podcast.
Okay.
And they laugh because up until COVID, they used to have all these like friends and family screenings.
Sure.
And so, I remember Iron Man 3, which is probably the movie I hate the most.
Oh, that's up there for me.
And I remember one of the Marvel execs came over to me and just said, "Could you let the movie come out before you eviscerate it?"
Wow, that's like, crazy.
Oh, thanks for listening to the podcast. I appreciate that.
Wow. It's so funny because they just know it's going to make money and they're like, fuck it, we'll film it. There's and now we have Shang-Chi.
Yeah. Simu Liu.
Good thing we made that movie, or they made that movie.
Well, Shang-Chi, the star of it is from one of the funniest TV shows I've ever seen.
Really?
It's called Kim's Convenience. It's on Netflix. Highly recommended. It's about this Korean family that immigrates to Canada, and they open a convenience store. But it's written by Koreans.
Okay.
And so it's very stereotypical, and it's very Korean jokes, but it's very, very funny. The father is Paul Sung-Young Lee. He plays the father on the show, and his son is Simu Liu. And the father came on the Hall of Justice recently.
Okay.
He actually is coming back on in a couple of weeks to talk about Kim's Convenience, because he's also a Star Wars nut, and he's in The Mandalorian. This father.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's Carson Teva. He's the rebel.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was such a cool guy, and we hooked up on social media, and he came on the podcast, and we did 45 minutes on Star Wars. I said, wow, we never even touched on Kim's Convenience, and I think Kim's Convenience is a great show, and
I've never heard of it.
Oh my God, it's so funny. It's one of the funniest shows of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Simu Liu is the son, and he's like one of my targets to get on the show. Because hey, I had your dad on. I had your dad on.
That's that would be crazy. I hopefully he doesn't listen to this, because I absolutely find the Shang-Chi movie not a bad movie, not a great movie by any means. I just find it pointless. Pointless for me as a Marvel fan.
Well, my review of it was too much Aquafina.
Yeah, 100%.
And I had no problem with again, it's not her as an actress. She's fine. Right. Ryan Reynolds fine as Green Lantern. Not his fault. He fought a cloud. But I didn't understand why at the end she's shooting arrows at the dragon.
No idea.
She had none of the training that he had. Like, where'd that come from? Like,
and why can't the rings be the 10 rings? Why can't we just do it? Why can't we have the real Mandalorian? Like, I know you just finished with the gauntlet. I got it.
Mandarin, not the Mandalorian.
Yeah, the Mandarin. Sorry, Mandalorian. Yeah. Why? It's like another one of those things, just do it. And I got it. Now I'm guessing they're trying to use this Kang quantum whatever energy bullshit that they're creating as a storyline that they're really who knows what they're going to do with Kang now. I guess they're recasting as we speak. My early theory is Michael B. Jordan.
Innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, we don't know.
That's true. He and that guy is what is his name?
Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, Jonathan Majors. He is fantastic.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he did it, it's horrific, and if he didn't, then he got screwed. I don't know.
Yeah.
in any of those situations. You got to let it play out. Give the guy his chance.
I agree.
I don't know. I don't know what Marvel does. I can tell you a very funny Ezra Miller joke though.
Oh, I'm ready.
So,
The Flash.
Ezra Miller has been a bit of a train wreck, right?
Yeah.
Kidnapping charges and burglary and arrested. If you lived under a rock and didn't read the news ever, but listened to every episode of the Hall of Justice podcast, you'd think Ezra Miller was a heck of a person. I'll tell you exactly how. Twice we had guests on the podcast in the last year. We had a guy named Mark Guggenheim, who is the executive producer of the CW shows.
Yep.
And he was talking about the Crisis on Infinite Earths on the on the CW.
Flash and Arrow
Flash
and all that.
Arrow. Yep. And they talked about this amazing story about how it was his idea to sneak Ezra Miller into Vancouver. And they did. Wow. And then they taught, and he spoke about Ezra Miller interacting with the cast of the TV show and what that was like. Great story, right? Great story.
Sounds awesome.
Fast forward 6 weeks, Peacemaker was a big hit.
Yep, great show.
We had Steve Agee, who plays John Kanoskos, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's the heavyset guy in the group.
Hilarious guy.
Yeah, hilarious. Yeah. Very funny guy. Great guy. He came on the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
And he told this amazing story about how the Justice League shows up at the season finale of Peacemaker.
Spoiler alert, if you weirdos haven't seen Peacemaker yet.
And Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller were incredible. And
it's so funny
that the two of them are joking around, and that was one take when they talked about how when the Flash says to Aquaman, like, the rumor is true that you fuck fish. Like, so if you don't read the news,
right,
and you don't know anything about the anything that has anything to do with the world, but you listen to my podcast, you'd think Ezra Miller was a great person.
Right. Yeah, he man, I don't know. I'm happy from what I hear about the movie. I haven't seen it yet.
We're going to review it next week.
I hear only good things from a few of the people I follow and listen to their stuff for their early reviews, non-spoilery. It looks cool. I love the idea. It's another one of those fucking hard stories though to tell. And
well, is it fan service or is it a great story?
It's going to be. I'm going to guess by the looks of so much Batman, it's going to dip its toe heavy in that area.
Well, the only thing I can say is we'll see.
I like it.
Like it could be great. The Flashpoint book was great. The animated Flashpoint Paradox was
fantastic.
Great.
Yep. I need me some Brainiac, man. DC keeps trolling me with Brainiac, and they're just not going to bring this monster to be. And we got kind of shitted on with Apocalypse as well. And Doomsday and all that, all this Omega Beams wannabe stuff, and then thank God Zack Snyder, said, "Fuck you guys, I'm making the movie anyways," and made the magic happen, which was really good. I loved the Snyder cut. I want more of that, which we're not going to get for probably a long time. Although it does sound like that Zack Snyder, after what's the new show coming out? Moon something? Rebel Moon?
Yeah, his show.
Rebel Moon's coming out, and then there's rumors that might dip his toe back into some sort of DC-ism.
I don't see
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I don't see that. Listen, Zach, the funny thing about Zach was when the podcast went viral, a lot of people asked me on social media, have him back on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remember the timeline of that, he was doing Justice League, and his daughter committed suicide. And that's the reason. That's the real reason he left Justice League. A lot of people thought he got fired from Justice League. He never got fired, and he left Justice League, and Justice League turned into what Justice League became, and it just was a personal bad time. You know what I mean? So
right.
It never. I didn't need the guest that bad. You know what I mean?
Of course,
it was never the right time. It just never seemed like the right time to have him on.
No, that would be a tough one. We just lost a person in my industry, sports cards. The other day, one of my customers actually that would come to my shows. I'm giving I guess a little shout out here to Ed. He ended up passing away last week from the same cause. So his funeral is this weekend, and yeah, it's fucking sad, especially Mental Health Month we're in. I think is there's always a month for something, but it's quite the timing. But yeah, I don't know. I love that we're on this comic book movie rant. It's a weird space right now. I feel like I love the saturation, and then I just want it to desaturize. I know that's not a word, but maybe let's take a breath. I'm excited for Secret Invasion.
The writer strike's going to help with that.
That's true. I'm excited for Secret Invasion, but I wasn't excited for WandaVision.
Oh, I loved WandaVision.
I couldn't take it. I need, I don't know what they're doing with Scarlet Witch. It's like in Doctor Strange 2 or whatever, they bring Scarlet Witch in as the bad guy girl, and I'm going, there's so many. You did Dormammu a disservice. You've done Galactus a disservice. All in the past. It's always this, oh, they're too big to do. Listen, man, you did Thanos. Shout out to Thanos. And you did him amazingly. Why do we need... Scarlet Witch is not bad. Well, she becomes bad later on. But like this Agatha
I'll
show
give you one better.
with,
my complaint with WandaVision was the very, very end. They have the big final scene.
Yeah, her and Agatha.
And at the end, she's walking through the town, and all the people that she kidnapped are looking at her.
Right.
And she goes over to Monica Rambeau and says, "Boy, they'll never look at me the same." And my response was, "Yeah, because you fucking kidnapped them."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Psycho.
What I thought, if Monica Rambeau is supposed to be a hero,
right,
and Darcy, Kat Dennings' character is supposed to be a hero, like these are Marvel heroes.
Yes.
They should try to apprehend her. Now, she should get away because she's that powerful.
Of course.
And, personally, if you're asking, that's where Benedict Cumberbatch would be brought in to try to curtail her then.
He was supposed to.
But the fact of the matter is they just let her walk. And as a matter of fact, Monica says, "Bye, Wanda."
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, what? And in the beginning of Doctor Strange, he goes to see her. Remember, he goes to see her, and she goes, "I bet you're here about Westview." And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, bitch.
You kidnapped all those.
You kidnapped a whole fucking town, lady.
What? I didn't understand. I didn't understand that in the slightest. My other big Marvel joke is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I love that show. Also, I enjoyed
that show.
I love Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Hawkeye, I loved. And
I liked Hawkeye.
And I loved WandaVision. I like the other ones, but I love those three. How is it? I want to know how the Avengers were compensated, because how is it that Vision, a fucking robot,
yes,
had money to buy a deed to land in New Jersey, but Falcon can't get a loan?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Where is Pepper Potts? Where is Pepper Potts for both of these?
Dude, that's just, yeah. I always tell my buddy, I'm like, you gotta just don't look at it. Don't.
Yeah, no, I pick these things apart. Like I I go through them. I take notes when I watch them. I'm the guy that's, when I go see these movies these days, I go in the middle of the day by myself where I can take my phone out and I can write notes to break them down. Like to me, that's
deep.
That's how to do reviews. Like,
no, I agree.
And the thing about it is, I hear a lot. We live in this world where we're so blessed that we have all this content. Like we have DC and Marvel, and if you want to get into the whole creator-owned stuff, I mean, right now the comic book creators are not getting compensated for these companies. I mean, the guy who created the Winter Soldier, Ed Brubaker, he didn't get a penny when Marvel made $1 billion on the Winter Soldier.
Crazy.
So what the creators did was they went out on their own and they created like hybrid Justice League stories, like the Umbrella Academy and The Boys and Invincible and some of these great properties that are now getting their just due.
Fucking Invincible, man.
On the podcast, The Boys, the review for The Boys is the worst review we did on on the 300 episodes we've done. Because all we did was gush.
Yeah, it's that show's fantastic.
It's great. It's great. There's nothing.
It needs to be. It needs to be rated NC-17. I think they need to go a little darker.
It's great. It's pretty dark. Yeah, it's pretty. It's
because the comic books are pretty fucking nasty.
It's The Boys is something special. Yeah, it's pretty good. A cool story about The Boys. They did an animated extra show called The Boys Diabolical. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's like 7 episodes and it takes place in the universe. It's not really tied in, but it's like extra stories that take place in the continuity of The Boys.
Sure.
And the animator and the showrunner of it is this wonderful guy named Giancarlo Volpe.
Okay.
And just for the record, Giancarlo Volpe is episode 2 of the Hall of Justice. This guy was so nice. He came on my podcast when it was absolutely nothing.
Like you coming on mine right now.
But no, that's not true, because we had a mutual friend. He didn't know me from a hole in the wall.
Right.
And he did it. He produced the Green Lantern animated series, that CGI series. And that's why I wanted to have him on. And I reached out to him on, I think, Twitter, and he did it. And
that's amazing.
This is when we had 50 listeners. Like, we had nothing.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what a nice person. So when I found out he was doing The Boys, I was like, oh my God, you have to come back. Like, and he just couldn't have been nicer. Like, I root for nice people.
Yeah,
it's so easy to root for nice people. And when you see a guy like Giancarlo Volpe doing The Boys, I just was like, oh my God, like what a cool thing.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
those are the kinds of stories that I thought, like when I came up with the idea for the podcast, like that's neat.
Oh, I 100% agree. And it's so funny you get some of those guests on that they're not taking a chance, but they're busy people, and they're they're willing to say, okay, because it's funny. I bring this up all the time with people. I took like a little hiatus from doing the show because I was so busy with my other job, my other business. And I get people asking me, well, when's the next guest coming on? And our mutual friend, he's always like, you got to keep going, man. You got to keep going. You're good. You just got to keep doing it. And what I always run into is getting the guests. I always say it's the hardest thing about having a YouTube/podcast channel is getting guests. And I literally will talk to anybody. I find it, I think as long as it's funny, you don't need to be like outrightly nice and like, oh, ho hum, I'm the nicest person ever. But just genuine, I guess, is the better term for me. I love it when people are just, yeah, that's you, sweet. And I think there's something to learn from everybody. Now, speaking of interesting people, you have his symbol behind you, and I think you're wearing the symbol.
Yeah, my T-shirt. Yeah.
I have no idea the background and connection.
All right,
so how are you and Prince so intertwined?
Well, I was a big fan growing up. his music really spoke to me. It was ironic. In the 90s, I changed my name.
Whoa. Did you have a red Corvette?
The same month he did. I didn't change it to a symbol, but I changed it to Seth Everett. And it was just a really, I just understood it a lot. So in 2012, these guys who owned StubHub,
okay,
they sold StubHub, and they sold it for like $330 million. And they were ostracized in the tech community because it's now worth like $2 billion. They should have held on to it. Oh. And anyway, they sold it to eBay. And so they had $330 million, and they invested in 2012. They were investing in what, like, you're using StreamYard, Facebook Live, and YouTube. What these things are now. These guys were at the forefront. They created something called Spreecast.
Okay.
And Spreecast in 2012, they hired this woman who worked for an agent that I had. I don't have an agent now. But they asked me to do sports content.
Okay.
And so I did. And, part of my job there was to recruit kids to do sports shows. So I was finding students, like aspiring sports broadcasters. Sure. Like, hey, you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Do a Cincinnati Bengals Spreecast, that kind of thing. And, over drinks one day, they were like, you should do shows that fit your personality. And the first one I tried was I did a show about Superman Returns, the movie. I was like, people either love that movie or hate that movie. No one just likes that movie. Right. People either like, oh, that movie's the best, or that movie's awful. So I did a show about that. This was 3 years before Hall of Justice. And then they were like, hey, you should do music. Spreecasts seem to be very popular. Who's your favorite rock band? And I was a big Prince fan. So I said, I'll do a show about Prince. And so I did like a 20-minute, we snuck into Purple Rain because there was a naked girl in the movie. Nice. that was my Prince story. And then Darla Nikki came on, and my mother heard the lyrics, so she took the tape away from me. And, that was my story. That was it. And they loved it. And it turns out one of the Spreecast engineers had worked on one of his websites or something. Wow. And they were like, do more. And so I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to talk about. So I went and I searched and I searched and I searched, and I found this blogger that either was like a mega fan or knew him. Okay. But either way, I was in. So I reached out to him, and it took him months to get back to me. It was funny. I was on the NBC Sports Network. And this was a time in the 2012, they used to put your Twitter handle, how you have my Twitter handle on the bottom. Yeah. They used to put it under your name on TV. Sure. And so one day I was in Connecticut, I was doing NBC Sports Network, and all of a sudden I got a tweet reply from this guy. Oh, hey, we'll do it. So, okay, fine. So I have him on as a guest. We're done. Fast forward to New Year's Eve, December 2012 into January 2013. Unbeknownst to me, I don't know any of this. Prince reaches out to the blogger and says, whoa, I have big plans for this year. Tech is going to be a big part of my year. And you should do a video, either a video or a podcast or something. And the only thing this guy knew how to do was what I had just showed him, because we had just done the thing a month prior. So on New Year's Day, he calls me up and he says, hey, can we do another one? I was like, another one? I was like, yeah, sure. So we did. We scheduled it. I remember the day. It was the Wednesday after New Year's Day. So it was January 8th. And in the interim, Prince joined Twitter and started sending out links to the show. Oh, my God. So I have this guy on as a guest, and I think it's just going to be another guest, sure, maybe 1,000 people would watch, Like now it's 55,000 people are watching this thing live.
That's awesome.
And we were like, what in the world? And then the next, like 2 days later, I get a phone call and it's the blogger. And I remember I was in the grocery store and he says, I'll make you a deal, or he'll make us a deal. I was like, huh? And he says, he will send us show notes. He will book our guests, and he will send us music to play on the show if we'll do the show weekly.
Oh my God.
And I was like, get out of town. Like,
yeah,
no
right.
way. And the next week, we had the drummer from the Revolution.
Holy shit.
I was like, no way.
That's amazing.
And all of a sudden we started getting emails from the manager. And if the emails were in caps, it was him. And if the emails were in lowercase, and he would send us music. There was one day where he wrote a song on a Sunday morning. He goes, I wrote this morning. I recorded it this afternoon. Can you get this on Wednesday's show?
Wow.
Like, it was crazy. And
That's
there's an
crazy.
article in Billboard magazine where Prince was the cover story. And he asked the reporter, before he would talk to the reporter, he asked the reporter to watch our show.
Holy shit.
And she wrote about it. And so it was crazy. And then in August, his band, without him, was playing for a week. They played like every night at a place called City Winery in New York.
Okay.
And we were asked to do the show live from City Winery. So we did.
Badass.
And we interviewed every band member. And that's when I met everybody in the band. I met the manager. I met everybody. And then that Sunday, I'll never forget, I get a phone call at like 5:00 in the afternoon. They're like, hey, come to City Winery tonight. And I live in New Jersey. I'm like, no. I'm like, we've done this. Like, we did all this.
Right.
And they're like, no, come. Come.
You're going to want to come tonight, man.
You're coming tonight. And so I did. And I show up there at like 11 o'clock. The manager who I had met, from the week, because we had done all this stuff.
Right.
He's like, and for Prince people, like, my social media blew up. Like, I would say a third of my followers are Prince people.
Oh, wow.
Like, still to this day. And I get to the manager and they're like, hey, go to the office. I was like, shit, I'm in trouble. And I go downstairs. I go downstairs and he was sitting at the desk.
No shit.
I was like, no fucking way.
Whoa.
And we talked for like 45 minutes. We hung out. It was very, very cool. Yeah. So I worked with him for a year.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's
cool
amazing.
Story. So when he died, we never told anybody that he produced the show. It was two fans doing a show. That was the theme.
Gotcha.
Just so happened that we were playing exclusive music and getting all these exclusive guests, but it was two fans having a show.
Right.
And when he died, we revealed that, he had produced it. My joke was, of his illustrious 39 album career, I was 0.8% of it.
What's your go-to Prince song? I don't like asking questions like that just have a answer, but I am curious.
Well, it's funny because most of my Prince songs are not from the 80s.
Okay.
I'm much more of a 90s Prince, or like name change, like independent artists kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
But if I had to pick one, it would be Baby I'm a Star.
Okay.
My second would be a song called Still Would Stand All Time from Graffiti Bridge.
Okay.
My third would be a song called Dolphin from The Gold Experience.
I've never heard of either of those songs.
Yeah.
But I will
definitely. Then I'll send you another one. There's a song that has not been released. That is my fourth all-time favorite song.
I would love to hear it. I mean, I love his commercial songs. Who doesn't? I don't know anybody.
Well, I have a standard Prince joke about that.
What is it?
If you made me list 100 great Prince songs, Kiss would not be on it. But that doesn't mean Kiss is a bad song. It just means there's 100 better songs
by Prince.
Then Kiss.
That's amazing. It's so crazy to become. I have so many people artists that just kind of been ingrained in me that I've followed for so long, and I'm a big Dave Matthews Band guy. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I'm like, I listen to a lot of hip hop, and I'm like, oh, Dave Matthews. You're like, wait, what?
No, he's great.
And up until the past few years, past 2-3 years, Kanye West was up there, as a big part of my listening stream. Too bad he's just lost it, unfortunately. What do you listen to now? I mean, obviously still Prince, but do you like music now? Obviously you like music, but
what? No, I still like music. I'm not one of those like old fuddy-duddies who just says all music today is garbage.
Sucks. Yeah.
But most music today sucks.
Agreed.
The whole music industry, the way it's all YouTube now and streaming services and
TikTok.
Yeah, none of that makes any sense to me.
Sure.
My TikTok feed is Ted Lasso clips and Sopranos clips, and
I don't even have one.
Weird. No, I mean, I promote my podcast with TikTok. I like it.
Oh, that makes sense.
But for me, what I like is I like a reason to listen to something.
Sure.
So if I'll see something there are some great Twitter accounts of people who are just like, they post these archive clips of great concerts and stuff. One of the things Prince did that was amazing. We would talk about tours. They were really nice. He was really cool about this. We would talk about a specific tour, and then I would mention in the show, I would say, oh, the Jam of the Year tour. Well, I saw him, that was 1997. So I saw him at Fiddler's Green in Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
And we would move on. We would move on. And like 3 days later, there would be like this WeTransfer link, and it would be the audio of that.
Oh, show. That's cool.
Like, he recorded everything.
That's amazing.
And so like I have that. That's why I'm a very old school iPhone music person. Like, sure. I have iTunes, and I sync my phone, and I put my music on my phone, and it's my music, and because if somebody, like now, because we're talking about this, I'll go in my car because I'm meeting my friend now. I'll listen to that.
Right.
And, generally what I listen to is mostly podcasts. When we renovated our upstairs, we put Sonos speakers in all the rooms of our house.
Love it.
So in our bathroom, we have like a shower speaker, which is amazing.
That's fucking cool.
And I will rock. I'll just pick random songs, and it'll be the most obscure Prince songs you've ever heard. And it's awesome.
Is your wife a fan?
No, it's funny. I dragged her. No. I dragged her to about 4 shows over the years. I saw him 22 times over 30 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's funny because I've seen Dave Matthews 15 times. And it's funny. Like, I have the same, he's probably who I've seen the most. And I've been to quite a few damn concerts. I'm pretty wide arrayed in that department.
That's awesome. That's
a lot. How did she like the concerts? I always say we were just talking about Kanye West. It's still to this day one of the craziest and greatest concert experiences I've ever been to. And I saw him at the Forum 5-6 years ago now. Floating stage. I don't know if you ever saw those pictures or anything. He built a whole stage, and it was floating over the entire crowd on a pulley system. And it was wild, and I had a couple friends that I'm like, dude, we got to go. I think this is going to be a thing. It's going to be an experience. And thankfully he finished out the concert. It was fantastic. And to this day, it's one of those, they were already fans like I was, but it just ingrained it even more. Like, holy shit. Now that was worth my $100-something to see that, Look it up. Kanye West floating stage. You'll be like, that's pretty fucking nuts.
Okay.
Did your wife ended up liking him at all? A little bit more?
No, she did. She did. I remember there was one time in Vegas, he was playing this club. He had a residency at a club, and he called it the 3121 Club in 2006. And we went to Vegas for the weekend, and it was a Sunday night, and he didn't take the stage until like midnight, and there were no seats.
Holy shit!
Yeah, she remembers that one. She remembers that one.
It's funny. My parents own a couple restaurants in Chicago, and they've been around for a long time. And it's a ribs and steaks restaurant, 70 something years in the city. And anytime Chicago and the Doobie Brothers come to Chicago, they have my family cater the concert for all the band people. Mm-hmm. So I'm working at the restaurant, and this is before I joined the Navy, and I'm in there, and my dad goes to me and my brother, and he goes, "Hey, so what are you guys doing?" And I'm like, "We're getting ready to go out." He's like, "Nope, you're gonna go work this. You're gonna go with me tonight, Chicago and the Doobie Brothers." And first of all, in my head, I'm going, "Who the fuck are those guys?" And two, he's like, "You're gonna go to this thing, and you're gonna help pass out the food, and then afterwards, we're gonna sit front row at the concert. You'll love it." And in my head, I'm like, "God damn it!" And I look at my brother, and I'm like, "Dude, we don't even listen to this shit. Like." Let's go out, let's find a way to get out of this. And so we're trying to think, and we just couldn't think of anything. And he's like, "All right, time to go. Let's go." So we go. I'm in the back and serving ribs to everyone in Chicago, everyone in the Doobie Brothers. I have no idea who these guys are. And as they're walking up, they're, grabbing food. Hey, they're super nice, thankful. Thank you so much. This and that. And then in my head, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do at this concert. I'm just going to be standing there like a weirdo because I don't know any of these. I thought I didn't know any of these songs.
Yeah.
And then I'm front row, and they are playing, China Grove, sure, you name it, all these amazing 25 to 624. And, and I'm going, these songs are fucking awesome. I remember all these songs, so I end up having, me and my brother end up having an amazing time. And it's just one of those things where I go, and to this day, I'm a huge now Doobie Brothers and Chicago fan because of that experience. Sure. It's always funny to hear people, I went to this concert, I had no idea, and then boom, I became a fucking Insta fan of this group,
That's awesome.
But we didn't get to talk about all your other stuff, which we didn't even get into sports and all that. And I don't want to keep you even deeper into the rabbit hole here.
Well, you just have to have me back.
Huh? I will. That's exactly what I was pivoting. So okay. I'd love to have you back on.
It's always a trick to ask somebody to come on your show on the air, so they can't be a dick and say, "No, never call me."
Right. I'll hold you to it, especially now that we're Twitter friends. Well, at least I friended you.
Okay.
So, is there anything you have that you want to promote other than your amazing shows?
Yeah, this week on Sports with Friends, we did it just came out. It published about 2 hours ago. I'll do some social media for it in a little bit. It's a dissection. An amazing reporter / author, Ian O'Connor, breaks down the PGA merger with Live.
I was gonna talk about that with you too.
Yeah, it's a whole to quote Seinfeld, it's a big matzo ball.
I bet. Shitstorm.
It's a big mess. Yeah, it's a big shitstorm. So we talk about that on the podcast. And then for Hall of Justice tomorrow, that comes out Thursdays, it's Transformers Rise of the Beast. It's part of 3 straight weeks of reviews of the #1 movie in the world. So last week was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This week it's Transformers Rise of the Beast. And then next week it's The Flash.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on the show, Seth.
Thanks for having me.
And I can't wait to have you on again, brother.
Yeah, anytime, dude.
I can't thank you enough. And I got to thank
you for your service.
Our mutual friend. Seriously. What's up?
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, no worries. Easy day. And everyone out there, like I said in the beginning, like, comment, subscribe, YouTube, Tasty Brains Podcast. I'm on all major streaming platforms. And make sure you give Seth a follow on IG. It's on the ticker below and on Twitter. He's got plenty of great content out there. And if you need more Prince content, just blow up his DMs, because now we know he has all the secret Prince recordings. All right, Seth.
All right, man. Brother. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, man.
Yep.